KSAN TV, San Angelo. Live from San Angelo's news channel, this is KSAN News at 5.
Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to KSAN News at 5 o'clock. Let's take a look at today's top headlines. Family members are mourning as investigators work to find out what started a deadly fire early New Year's Day that killed 3 people. Mary Salazar has a story.
You know, when your phone rings that early in the morning, it's always something bad.
Randy Martin's nephew was one killed in the mobile home fire that began early Monday morning.
My nephew was just staying here temporary. He was waiting on a job in another town, and he was just staying here temporary till he got the job.
The fire claimed 3 innocent lives, including a 1-month-old baby, leaving behind nothing but ash and destruction.
It's kind of hard to say what goes through your head. The first thing is you don't want to believe it's true.
But there were some who made it out of the fire.
His friend and his girlfriend and her little boy made it out. I think they had some burns and this and that. But we hadn't got to talk to them, visit with them, so I don't know a whole lot.
Motley County Volunteer Fire Department and Floyd Data Volunteer Fire Department responded to the incident near the 500 block Newland Avenue. Motley County Sheriff's Office says at this time they do not believe the fire was started intentionally, but the investigation is still ongoing. Martin says one thing they can count on is the support from their town.
This town is real good. They stick together. They take care of everybody. They're real good about that.
Mari Salazar.
Cold weather may be to blame for the death of a Texas man who fell out of his wheelchair. Officials say they found the man around 8 a.m. at an intersection in Corpus Christi. He was pronounced dead at the scene. It appeared he may have fallen out of his chair sometime overnight and could not get up. The chase involving carjacking suspects ended in a major crash in Dallas late this morning. Dallas police say officers were pursuing the carjacking suspects when the crash happened. All 4 carjacking suspects were taken into custody. Firefighters with Dallas Fire and Rescue had to extricate at least one person who was trapped in a sedan that rolled over in the intersection. That person's condition is not known. 6 people were transported to area hospitals. 5 of the injured had injuries that were not life-threatening. The condition of the 6th person is not known. Travel troubles at the airport in Dallas-Fort Worth Monday evening after the U.S. Customs and Border Production computer system went down. The outage happened around 6:30 local time and lasted about 2 hours. During that time, border agents used alternative procedures to process international passengers. The agency says there's no indication the outage was malicious. A similar outage was reported at the Denver airport. So we've said goodbye to 2017 and we're looking ahead to what 2018 has in store for us. KSAN's Wes Rappaport looks at some of the new challenges the new year may bring to Texas politics.
We're playing everywhere, and we're playing to win.
An excited Texas Democratic Party official told us about a month ago she was ready to show the strength of the left in Texas. A Republican that same day told me the GOP lineup looks better.
We're confident that Republican values and Texas values align perfectly, and that Texans will continue, as they have been for the past 20 years, electing Republicans.
Analysts say this year may bridge the gap.
2018 doesn't look to be the year Texas turns blue in any meaningful way. It may well turn out to be the year that the Democrats at least begin to get off the mat a little bit.
Jim Henson with UT's Texas Politics Project says big national issues have a big impact in the Lone Star State.
Continued conversation about illegal immigration and border security in Texas and how Texas as a state squares its relatively mixed position in that debate.
And Henson says keep an eye on the budget, especially when it comes to Hurricane Harvey.
We know that the day the legislature steps into session in January of 2019, there are going to be some big overhanging bills to pay that were deferred last time as a result of the efforts that they needed to make to balance the budget in 2017. Harvey is going to make that worse, and we don't know exactly what the impact of the most recent discussion and changes in Washington, D.C. on taxes are going to be.
In Austin, Wes Rappaport, KSAN, San Angelo's News Channel.
2017 was the safest year for commercial airline passengers in history. And you can get Texas barbecue delivered anywhere in the nation. Jane King is at the NASDAQ with those stories and more in today's Texas Business Report.
Hello, Texas. A new report finds that 2017 was the safest year for commercial air travel ever, with only 111 accidents and 13 deaths worldwide. The two fatal accidents both involve small regional planes. This is all according to the aviation consultant group 270. Well, Texas luxury home sales were up 19% in 2017. The Texas Association of Realtors says those are homes for sale for more than $1 million. Well, Texans were spending more at car dealers and stores in November. The Texas Comptroller's Office says state sales tax revenue totaled $2.8 billion that month. That's an 11% increase compared to November of 2016. And several Texas barbecue joints will be shipping to other states, among those Lay Barbecue in Austin, Cooper's, and Salt Lick. Everything but the Hill Country ambiance. From the NASDAQ market site in Times Square, I'm Jane King with your Texas Business Report.
The extreme cold that has swept across the nation is not only uncomfortable, it has turned deadly. Places like Atlanta and parts of Texas have freezing temps today. Blake McCoy is in the bitter cold Chicago with more.
This morning, much of the country is kicking off the new year in a deep freeze. Chicago waking up below zero for the fourth day in a row.
It's freezing out here.
I'm freezing. I'm from Florida. This is craziness.
The Arctic blast has been relentless and widespread. In northwest Washington, an ice storm toppled power lines, officials urging people to stay home. Texas, which is ill-prepared for this frigid weather, is coated in ice. A spatula doubling as a window scraper, and this police officer outside Dallas slipping on a highway as a car nearly slides into him. The dangerous weather has now turned deadly. At least 5 people freezing to death across 4 states. Polar plunges are a New Year's Day tradition. But this year's event in Milwaukee came with a medical warning from organizers. And a polar plunge in Cleveland had to be canceled when they couldn't break through the ice. Niagara Falls this morning frozen too, as the bitter cold shows no sign of letting go.
Some school kids did catch a lucky break today. Class was canceled for public schools in Indianapolis and Cedar Rapids. At many schools, the buses wouldn't start because they've been sitting idle for the past 2 weeks. The moral of the story here, bundle up. Blake McCoy, NBC News, Chicago.
Coming up next here on KSAN News at 5, Josh Johns will have our forecast. But first, a look at what's ahead on NBC Nightly News.
Ahead for us, South Korea responds to a surprise offer from North Korea amid signs of another pending missile launch. And with millions of followers, a blogger's YouTube posting on suicide provokes anger and hurt. Tonight on Nightly News.
This is KSAN News at 5 with Susanna Castillo, Chief Meteorologist Josh Johns, and Sports Director Jason Britch. KSAN, San Angelo's news channel. Live from San Angelo's news channel, this is KSAN News at 5.
President Trump is back in Washington after 10 days of vacation. He starts a new year with a number of challenges on his plate. Joe Johns reports.
President Trump returning to Washington with a large legislative to-do list and a range of international issues on his plate.
Everybody's going to love is what's happening with our country because we're taking this big, beautiful ship and we're slowly turning it around. I'd like to do it faster.
Mr. Trump weighing in multiple times over the holiday on the deadly anti-government protest in Iran, saying that Iran is failing at every level and calling for change after warning the U.S. is watching very closely for human rights violations.
It's not enough to watch. President Trump is tweeting very sympathetically to the Iranian people, but you just can't tweet here. You have to lay out a plan.
Iran's ambassador to the U.K. calling the tweets offensive in an Instagram posting Monday night. As for Kim Jong-un's New Year's threat that the nuclear button is always on his desk, President Trump saying only this.
We'll see. We'll see.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff warning that the U.S. is closer to a nuclear war with North Korea than ever before.
I don't see the opportunities to solve this diplomatically at this particular point.
The Trump administration's relationship with Pakistan also strained heading into the new year. Mr. Trump accusing Pakistan of lying and deceiving the United States in his first tweet of the year, and again alleging that the country's leaders have given safe haven to terrorists.
We have been paying Pakistan billions and billions of dollars. At the same time, they are housing the very terrorists that we are fighting.
A National Security Council spokesman later saying the U.S. will continue to withhold $255 million worth of military aid from the country. Pakistan responding by summoning the U.S. ambassador for a meeting and promising to respond shortly to let the world know the truth. All this as the administration confronts a number of legislative deadlines back here in the U.S. The first, a January 19th deadline to pass a spending bill and avert a government shutdown that could cost billions. One issue that will be front and center, protection for so-called dreamers who were brought to the country illegally as children. The president insisting there will not be a deal on DACA without funding for a wall, a non-starter for Democrats.
Will you give anything to the president on border wall funding in order to get a DACA deal done? Because he says
No.
it's...
Now that all the gifts are open, you may want to think twice about little objects left around your home. Doctors say they're seeing a lot more cases lately of children putting small items in their ears and noses. Savannah Levins reports.
Anything that is small enough to be put in a nose or an ear, we've seen it there before.
You might think your child would know better than to stick a button or a nickel or a screw in their ear, but...
It certainly happens.
And Dr. Christopher Tebbett would know. He's seen it all.
This poor little girl, she came in, she was about 4 or 5 years old, but for the last couple of years, she'd been suffering from just really bad breath. Ended up kind of figuring out with a scope here in the office that there was some rotting newspaper in the back of her nose. And when we pulled it out, you could actually see just a little bit of print, and the date was actually 2 years prior, so it had been there for 2 years.
The consequences can be serious. An 11-year-old Cyprus boy was recently hospitalized after he put magnets in his nose. A few years ago, we covered a story about a 6-year-old South Carolina girl who had a pin stuck in her nose for 5 years. Doctors thought it was just a sinus infection.
What do you think about these things now?
I don't like them.
And if you do suspect something is wrong, seek professional help.
You certainly wouldn't want to be digging in this area because if you push it into the eardrum, you might actually cause some hearing loss.
Doctors say the most common items they find are beads. The most common location is in the ear, and the biggest mistake they see is when parents try to flush the items out with organic materials, especially water, which makes it worse. We'll be right back with your local forecast.
With your Storm Team weather, here's Chief Meteorologist Josh Johns.
Good Tuesday afternoon and welcome back to KSAN News at 5. Been a chilly night and into a chilly day outside thanks to cloud cover that just continued to hold on. You're looking at the last 18 hours or so from our San Angelo sky cam sitting in downtown San Angelo and facing off to the west. We've also had a little bit of moisture work in. There's some flurries flying. You can't really see them on sky cam, but they are happening here at the station and got a really neat picture of them coming up in just a little bit. We only got up to 25 degrees today. That's 34 degrees below normal and it sets a new record low high for the date of January 2nd. Normally we should be at 59 and the old record low high was only 2 degrees higher at 27 in 1974. Going to be clear and cold again tonight with temperatures getting down into the teens once again, but then sunny and finally warmer as we head into tomorrow. We'll get into the 50s and see a little bit more sunshine. After that, we're watching the potential, at least, for a weekend rain chance. Right now outside, 24 degrees at Mathis Field. Our dew point's at 17. Winds are out of the north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. And with that, it makes it feel like it's 15 degrees outside. We started off in the teens and temperatures didn't really move much. We only stayed in the 20s through most of the day. In fact, didn't even drop to the teens here in San Angelo. It dropped to about 20 degrees. But we'll see temperatures going down into the teens again tonight. Some of you started out in the teens. 18 degrees in Sterling City. It was 21 earlier in Sonora. 19 degrees this morning in Menard. 19 also in Miles, and 15 degrees, the cold spot there in Barnhart. Tonight, you're getting down to the teens again with those temperatures going down to the upper teens, maybe a few 20s along the I-10 corridor, but still a very cold night. And you're going to want to bundle up the kiddos if they're heading back to school in the morning because we'll see those wind chills once again getting down to the lower teens. Take a look at live Winter Vision Doppler because we do have some flurries working into Santa Ana, Coke County earlier. You can see them right here as evidenced by this bluish color. That's pushing into Sandy had pretty good falling at the station last time I checked. That'll continue off and surely start to before it makes our sub-counties. This is cool, though. Took this picture outside on our parking lot. Look at the shape of the snowflake there, that flurry. Pretty neat that you can see such a distinct shape like that, and kind of neat that you can see a little bit of snow, even if it wasn't in the forecast. Temperatures are in the 20s across most of the state. There's even 30s down in San Antonio and also in Houston, even down into the upper 30s there in the Rio Grande Valley. Pretty cold across the state. 27 right now in Ozona. It's 24 in Sterling City, 24 also in Brady, and 28 in Junction. And when you factor in the winds, even though they're only blowing at about 5 miles per hour, it does make it feel a little bit cooler, feeling like the teens across most of the Concho Valley. Dew points are in the teens again. That's how cold we're going tonight with those clearing skies. And when you wake up in the morning, going to feel colder, feeling like it's more in the lower teens and potentially some single-digit wind chills. So bundle up the kiddos if you're heading anywhere tomorrow. Cold across the entire U.S. too. Pretty big, deep freeze there across the northern portions of the U.S. They're going to be down in this negative or below zero tonight. What's really cool, though, is if you take a look up at Alaska, it's warmer. It's warmer in Whitehorse right now than it is in San Angelo. That's what usually sends our cold stuff down, is when you get warmer up there towards Alaska. That pushes the cold air to the south, and that's what's happened with this round of cold air. Going to drop down into the teens tonight, even though Futurecast is showing us the 20s. Should be a clear night, and that clear day tomorrow will help us get up to the upper 40s and lower 50s outside, even though the winds will still be out of the north, making it feel like it's in the lower 40s. And then we should start off once again in the 20s there on Thursday morning, and then getting up into the warmer 50s, potentially up into the mid-50s there by Thursday, and also mid-50s on Friday. We'll be in the 60s by the time we get into the weekend. But you still got to take your hard freeze precautions tonight. Protect the sensitive plants and the flowering blooms. Check on the elderly. Ensure heaters are properly working. Bring pets and livestock inside to a warmer area. And be sure to turn off your sprinklers. Protect your pipes and your faucets. We don't want to have any ice out there. And with the flurries falling, that's adding a little bit more moisture to the road. So watch out for some icy spots on your evening commute. I think we get down to 17 degrees tonight with decreasing clouds. Still cold with calm winds. And then for Wednesday, we're finally above freezing, up to around 52, mainly sunny and finally warmer, although winds will still be out of the north at about 5 miles per hour. Take a look at your extended forecast, because we're going into the 60s by the time we get into the weekend. We're also bringing in a weak front that'll give us a slight chance of rain Saturday night and into Sunday morning, and then a warmer start to the new week. We'll be right back.
San Angelo's news channel. This is KSAN News at 5.
Welcome back. We have Karen Gray with us here. Thanks for coming in. Now, you're with American Cancer Society. Tell us about this fundraiser that's coming up in May.
So for the 23rd year, we're having our American Cancer Society Relay for Life event. And it's a celebration of life and just a remembrance of our cancer survivors and everything that they go through, and a way to recognize our caregivers as well.
Now, most people know what Relay for Life is, but just in case, for those people who don't know, what is it and how can they get involved?
So Relay for Life is an annual event. It's one of our largest fundraisers for the American Cancer Society. It's a way that we support our cancer support, research, and way to fund the cure. So we're fighting for a cure for cancer. Bottom line, there's no easy way to say it. There's nothing fun about it except for Relay. Relay is a celebration to do that, and it's a fun way to raise money. Our teams get involved. It's a personal way to recognize those that have been touched by cancer, which unfortunately is everybody that I know.
Right. And now, how can people who want to get involved, how much does it cost, and what do they get in return?
So Relay for Life is a free event. It doesn't cost anything to participate, but we are out there to raise money for cancer research and funds. So we ask that they come do fundraisers. They can bring their own money, or they can go out to the community and sell things. We have people that do cake sales. They do different kind of fundraisers. We have great ideas. If they want to get some information, they can reach out to me. And they can also go to our website, which is relayforlife.org/Tom Green COTX. Tons of resources and information on that website.
Okay, and speaking about finding information, you recently closed the office here.
We did.
In October. Why?
So we always look at how can we do this better? How can we be a better steward with the funds that we're given? Because we are a nonprofit organization, so we want to make sure that we're using our money the best way possible. And we really found that we didn't have a lot of people that even knew the building existed, and we didn't have a lot of foot traffic. So instead of paying for utilities and insurance to keep the office open, we turned around and we're going to put that money back into research and things just to be a better steward. So we're taking our services to where the patients are receiving their cancer treatment. We're also making sure that employers know that they have resources through the American Cancer Society on ways to have healthier employees. If their employees do get diagnosed with cancer or their family members, that they know where to get help. So I just want to make sure that our community knows that we have a resource. I have tons of information. I'm happy to come to them and give them those tools and resources so that they can empower their employees to live healthier lives.
Because you still exist, even though the offices aren't here.
Absolutely.
There's a 1-800 number that people can call. You were saying toll-free for more information, and the website, 1-800.
That is our 24/7, 365. There's always a person that answers it for any kind of information that they need, employers or cancer survivors.
Thank you so much for coming in, and of course, there you have the number. We'll be right back with your final forecast.
Live from San Angelo's News Channel, this is KSAN News at 5.
Coming up during our 6 o'clock broadcast, a new year, a new you. A few tips on how to follow through on one of the most popular New Year resolutions. As you could see there, working out. Those details in about 30 minutes. Now it's snowing, or it's been snowing. You saw some flakes outside. How long is it going to snow for?
It's about as good of a snow we get in Texas sometimes. It should clear out over the next few hours, actually. There's dry air working in behind it. That's part of what's making it happen a little bit more just right now, but it should clear out by the time you go to dinner, I think, even, at least here in San Angelo, maybe holding on a little bit longer in our southern counties. Okay. Nothing's going to stick.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back here in about 30 minutes.
For more on today's stories, visit ConchoValleyHomepage.com.